What happens when Hollywood's most respected action star walks onto a talk show stage, only to face a host who refuses to let him speak? In just 32 seconds, a simple greeting spiraled into one of the most shocking exits in daytime television history. This is the story of how one question changed everything. The stage lights were bright that morning. Harrison Ford walked out with his usual calm confidence. The audience clapped loudly. They were excited to see him. He waved and smiled as he made his way to the interview chair. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. But within moments, the atmosphere would shift completely. Whoopi Goldberg sat at the table with the other hosts. She looked at Harrison with a strange expression. It was not friendly. It was not welcoming. Joy Behar sat next to her, chatting with Sonny Hostin. Sarah Haynes was smiling at the audience. Ana Navarro was checking her notes. They all seemed ready for a normal interview. But Whoopi had other plans. Harrison sat down in the guest chair. He adjusted his jacket and prepared to talk about his new film. The cameras were rolling. Millions of people were watching from home. He had done hundreds of interviews in his career. He knew how this worked, but he did not know what was coming. Whoopi leaned forward. She did not wait for the usual pleasantries. She did not ask about his movie. Instead, she jumped right into a topic that had nothing to do with why he was there. Her voice was sharp. Her tone was accusatory. "So Harrison," Whoopi began, "I think we need to talk about your privilege. You have been in this industry for decades. You have made millions, and you have never spoken up about the real issues that matter. Why is that?" The other hosts looked surprised. Joy's eyes went wide. Sunny shifted in her seat. Sarah stopped smiling. Anna put down her notes. This was not the plan. This was not what they rehearsed. But Whoopi kept going. Harrison blinked. He paused for a moment. He tried to stay calm. "Well, I am here to talk about my new film," he said politely. "I think people will really enjoy it. We worked very hard on it." Whoopi waved her hand dismissively. No. We are not doing that. We are not going to sit here and pretend like everything is fine. You come on this show, you sit in that chair, and you think you can just promote your movie without addressing the bigger picture?" The audience was silent. You could hear people breathing. The tension was thick. Harrison looked confused. He had not expected this at all. He thought he was coming on to have a friendly conversation. He thought he would share some stories, make people laugh, and talk about his work. Instead, he was being attacked. "I am not sure what you mean," Harrison said slowly. "I came here in good faith. I was invited to talk about my project. If there is something specific you want to know, I am happy to answer questions." Whoopi leaned back in her chair. She crossed her arms. "Good faith? Please. You show up here expecting us to just roll out the red carpet for you. You think you deserve that? You think your movie is more important than the conversations we need to be having?" Joy tried to step in. "Whoopi, maybe we should," she started to say, but Whoopi cut her off. "No, Joy. This is important. This matters." Whoopi turned back to Harrison. Her eyes were intense. Her jaw was set. "You have been silent on so many issues. You have all this power, all this influence, and you do nothing with it. You just make your movies and collect your paychecks." Harrison took a deep breath. He was trying very hard to remain respectful. "I think you are making some assumptions about me that are not fair. I have supported many causes over the years. I have used my platform in ways that feel right to me. But I do not think it is appropriate to ambush someone on live television like this." The word ambush hung in the air. The other hosts looked at each other nervously. Sunny cleared her throat. She tried to redirect. "Harrison, maybe we can talk about the film and then come back to," she began. But Whoopi interrupted again. "Ambush? You think this is an ambush? This is called accountability. This is called using our platform to ask the hard questions. You are a public figure. You signed up for this. Harrison's expression changed. The patience was starting to wear thin. No, actually, I signed up to talk about my movie. That is why I am here. That is what I was told this interview would be about. I did not agree to be lectured or judged for things you think I should have done differently. The audience started murmuring. Some people were nodding. They could see what was happening. This was not right. This was not how you treat a guest. But Whoopi was not backing down. Well, maybe you need to be lectured, Whoopi shot back. Maybe someone needs to tell you that just being famous is not enough. Just being talented is not enough. You have a responsibility. Anna tried to jump in. I think what Whoopi is trying to say is, she started, but Harrison raised his hand gently. No, I understand what she is trying to say, Harrison said. His voice was steady but firm. And I have to respectfully disagree. I do not believe that coming on a talk show to promote my work means I owe anyone an explanation for every choice I have ever made in my life. Whoopi laughed. It was not a friendly laugh. It was dismissive. It was mocking. Oh, so you do not owe us anything? You do not owe the audience anything? That is rich. That is really rich. Sarah looked uncomfortable. She glanced at the producers off camera. Joy was shaking her head slightly. Sunny looked down at the table. They all knew this was going too far. They all knew this was not okay, but they did not know how to stop it. I owe the audience respect, Harrison said, and I believe I have always shown that. But respect goes both ways. Right now, I do not feel like I am being treated with any respect at all. Whoopi leaned forward again. Her voice got louder. You want respect? You want us to treat you nicely? Maybe you should earn it. Maybe you should use your voice for something that actually matters instead of just showing up here to sell tickets. The audience gasped. Some people looked shocked. Others looked angry. Harrison sat very still. He was thinking. He was deciding what to do next. The cameras kept rolling. The whole country was watching this unfold. You know what? Harrison said quietly. I think I have heard enough. He started to stand up. The other hosts looked panicked. Joy quickly spoke up. Harrison, please, let's just take a breath here. We can start over. But Harrison shook his head. No, I do not think so. This was supposed to be a conversation. Instead, it has been an attack from the moment I sat down. I will not participate in this. Whoopi stood up too. She pointed at him. Oh, so now you are going to run away? You cannot handle a little pushback? This is exactly what I am talking about. You people are so used to everyone kissing your feet that you cannot deal with real questions. You people? Harrison repeated. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean exactly? Whoopi waved her hand again. You know what I mean. Hollywood elite. Rich actors. People who live in bubbles. Harrison looked at her for a long moment. I think you are the one living in a bubble if you think this is how you have a productive conversation with someone. Sunny tried one more time. Harrison, I think there has been a misunderstanding here. Maybe we can all just, she said, reaching out toward him, but Harrison was already removing his microphone. There is no misunderstanding, he said calmly. I understand perfectly. I was invited here under false pretenses. I was told this would be a certain kind of interview. It is not, so I am leaving. Anna stood up. Harrison, come on. Do not do this. We can fix this. Harrison placed the microphone on the table. He looked at each of the hosts except Whoopi. I have a lot of respect for all of you, he said to them, but I will not sit here and be disrespected on national television. Thank you for your time. Whoopi threw her hands up. Fine. Leave. Walk away. That is what you are good at, right? Walking away from hard conversations. Harrison stopped. He turned back to face her one last time. There is a difference between a hard conversation and a hostile interrogation, he said. You should learn the difference. The audience was dead silent. You could hear every breath, every rustle of clothing, every creak of the chairs. The other hosts looked mortified. Joy had her head in her hands. Sarah was staring at the floor. Sunny looked like she might cry. Anna was frozen in place. Whoopi crossed her arms. Her face was hard. She did not look sorry. She did not look like she regretted anything. If you cannot handle the heat, stay out of the kitchen, she said coldly. Harrison nodded slowly. I have been in plenty of kitchens, he said, but I do not stay in ones where the chef is poisoning the food. With that, he turned and walked off the stage. His footsteps echoed in the silent studio. The cameras followed him as he disappeared behind the curtain. The red light on the main camera was still on. They were still live. Everyone was still watching. Joy finally spoke. Her voice was shaky. Well, that was certainly unexpected. Whoopi sat back down. She picked up her coffee cup like nothing had happened. Sometimes you have to ask the tough questions, she said to the camera. Sometimes guests do not like it, but that is not our problem. Sarah looked at Whoopi with disbelief. That was not asking tough questions, she said quietly. That was attacking him from the second he sat down. Whoopi shrugged. You saw what you saw. I saw what I saw. Sunny shook her head. Whoopi, that was not okay. He came here as our guest. We invited him, and you treated him like he was on trial. Anna agreed. She is right. That was way over the line. I mean, I am all for holding people accountable, but there is a time and a place, and there is a way to do it that does not involve ambushing someone. Joy looked at the camera. We are going to take a quick break, she said. When we come back, we will continue the show. As soon as the cameras cut, chaos erupted. The producers rushed onto the stage. The other hosts all started talking at once. Some were angry. Some were upset. All of them were trying to make sense of what had just happened. But Whoopi just sat there. She sipped her coffee. She looked at her notes. She acted like everything was normal. She acted like she had not just driven away one of the biggest stars in Hollywood on live television. Backstage, Harrison was talking to his publicist. He was calm. He was composed. He was explaining what had happened. His team was in shock. They could not believe it. They had done hundreds of these interviews. They had never seen anything like this. Are you okay? His publicist asked. She looked worried. Harrison nodded. I am fine, he said. I just wish I had known that was going to happen. I would have been better prepared, or I would not have come at all. His publicist shook her head. We had no idea. They told us this would be a standard promotional interview. They gave us the talking points. There was nothing in there about any of that. Harrison sighed. Well, now we know. And now everyone else knows too. Back on the stage, the other hosts were still processing everything. Joy was pacing. Sarah was sitting with her arms crossed. Sunny was on the phone with someone. Anna was staring at Whoopi. Do you even care that you just did that? Anna asked. Her voice was sharp. Whoopi looked up. Did what? Asked important questions? Yes, I care about that. I care about that a lot. Joy stopped pacing. Those were not questions, Whoopi. Those were accusations. You attacked him. You made him so uncomfortable that he had to leave. Whoopi stood up. If he could not handle it, that is on him. I am not going to apologize for doing my job. Sarah stood up too. Your job is to interview guests, not to berate them, not to lecture them, not to make them feel like they are being put on trial. Whoopi rolled her eyes. Oh, please. You are all overreacting. He will be fine. His movie will be fine. Everyone will forget about this in a week. Sunny hung up the phone. Actually, no one is going to forget about this, because it is already all over social media. People are furious. They are saying you were out of line. They are saying Harrison was right to leave. Whoopi shrugged. People always have opinions. That does not mean they are right. The producers called everyone back. They had to finish the show. They had to get through the rest of the hour. But everyone knew this was not going to be easy. The energy was wrong. The mood was sour. The audience was uncomfortable. When they came back from the break, Joy tried to sound normal. "Welcome back, everyone," she said. Her smile was forced. "We have a lot more show ahead, so let's keep going." But the audience was not having it. Some people were whispering. Some were shaking their heads. Some were checking their phones. They had all just witnessed something uncomfortable. They had all seen a respected guest get chased away. And they did not like it. Throughout the rest of the show, the hosts tried to move on. They tried to talk about other topics. They tried to laugh and joke like normal. But it felt hollow. It felt fake. Everyone could feel the tension. Whoopi barely spoke for the rest of the hour. She sat back in her chair. She sipped her coffee. She looked annoyed whenever anyone brought up what had happened. She did not want to talk about it. She did not want to acknowledge it. The other hosts kept glancing at her. They kept waiting for her to say something, to apologize, to admit she went too far. But she never did. She just sat there with her arms crossed, looking defiant. When the show finally ended, everyone filed off the stage in silence. There was no chatter, no laughter, no friendly goodbyes, just tension and awkwardness. Harrison Ford had walked off the stage with his dignity intact. He had refused to be bullied. He had refused to sit there and take abuse disguised as journalism. He had made it clear that there are limits to what guests should have to endure, even on live television. Whoopi had shown the world a different side of herself. She had revealed a combative approach that shocked viewers. She had turned what should have been a simple movie promotion into a confrontation that no one saw coming. The moment Harrison removed his microphone and walked away became one of the most talked about exits in talk show history. The video clips spread everywhere. Everyone had an opinion. Most people sided with Harrison. They saw him as the victim of an unfair attack. They saw Whoopi as someone who had abused her power as a host. The clash showed something important. It showed that even the most professional people have limits. Even the calmest celebrities will stand up for themselves when pushed too far. And it showed that talk show hosts need to remember they are there to interview guests, not interrogate them. The other hosts on the panel that day never forgot what they witnessed. They saw up close what happens when someone in power lets their ego take control. They saw how quickly a conversation can turn toxic. They saw how one person's behavior can create chaos for everyone around them. Joy Behar had tried to step in multiple times. She had tried to steer things back on track, but she was shut down. Her attempts to bring civility back to the conversation were ignored. She sat there watching helplessly as the interview spiraled out of control. Sunny Hostin had seen many heated debates on the show. She was no stranger to tough conversations, but even she knew this was different. This was not a debate. This was not a discussion. This was one person attacking another while the cameras rolled. Sarah Haynes had looked forward to meeting Harrison. She was excited about the interview. She had questions prepared about his career, his experiences, and his new project. But she never got to ask any of them. Instead, she sat there feeling embarrassed and uncomfortable. Ana Navarro had built her career on tough questions and honest commentary, but she understood the difference between challenging someone and attacking them. She understood that respect and accountability can coexist. What she saw that day was not accountability. It was aggression. The audience in the studio that day went home with a story to tell. They had come expecting entertainment. They had come hoping to see a beloved movie star talk about his work. Instead, they witnessed a public confrontation that left everyone feeling uncomfortable. Some audience members later said they felt bad for Harrison. They said he handled himself with grace and restraint. They said he gave Whoopi multiple chances to change course. They said he only left when it became clear that respect was not going to be part of the equation. Others said they were disappointed in the show. They had been longtime viewers. They trusted the hosts, but after seeing how a guest was treated, they questioned whether they wanted to continue watching. They questioned whether the show still represented the values it claimed to uphold. The technical crew that day had seen many episodes. They had seen hundreds of interviews. They had filmed countless conversations. But they had never seen a guest walk off like that. They had never seen such a sudden and dramatic exit. The camera operators kept filming. That was their job. They captured every moment, every uncomfortable silence, every sharp word, every tense exchange. They documented the whole thing from start to finish. The audio team recorded every word. They picked up the gasps from the audience. They caught the strain in people's voices. They captured the moment when everything changed from a normal interview into something else entirely. Harrison's calm demeanor throughout the confrontation stood out to everyone who watched. He did not yell. He did not insult anyone. He did not stoop to the level of behavior being directed at him. He simply stated his position, explained his reasoning, and made his choice to leave. His final comments before walking off resonated with many people. He had said there was a difference between a hard conversation and a hostile interrogation. Those words captured exactly what had happened. It was not an interview. It was an attack disguised as journalism. Whoopi's refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing made things worse. Her insistence that she was just doing her job fell flat with most viewers. People understood the difference between asking tough questions and creating a hostile environment, and they felt she had clearly crossed that line. Her comment about Harrison not being able to handle the heat struck many as arrogant. It suggested she believed anyone who objects to being attacked must be weak or unwilling to engage, but that missed the point entirely. The issue was not about handling difficult questions. It was about basic respect. The way she dismissed the concerns of her fellow hosts also raised eyebrows. When Joy, Sunny, Sarah, and Anna all tried to tell her she had gone too far, she brushed them off. She acted like they were overreacting. She refused to even consider that maybe, just maybe, they had a point. This moment became a teaching moment for many people in the media industry. It showed what not to do when interviewing guests. It demonstrated how quickly things can go wrong when ego takes over. It proved that power should be used responsibly, not as a weapon. The fact that Harrison remained calm throughout made him look even better. While being verbally attacked, he kept his composure. While being dismissed and mocked, he stayed respectful. He only raised his voice once, and even then it was measured and controlled. He showed true character under pressure. His decision to remove his microphone and leave was not impulsive. It was deliberate. He gave multiple chances for the situation to improve. He tried to redirect the conversation. He explained his position clearly. Only when it became obvious that nothing was going to change did he make the choice to go. The symbolism of placing the microphone on the table was powerful. It was a physical representation of his refusal to participate any longer. It showed he was done. It showed he had reached his limit. And it showed he was not going to be pushed around on live television. When he thanked the other hosts, but specifically excluded Whoopi, people noticed. It was a clear message. He respected them. He appreciated their attempts to intervene. But he had no respect for the person who had created the hostile situation. That distinction mattered. The sound of his footsteps as he walked away became iconic. In the silent studio, those footsteps echoed. Every step was a statement. Every step said he would not be treated that way. Every step was a refusal to compromise his dignity. The other guests scheduled to appear later that day must have felt awkward. They had to go on after one of the biggest stars in Hollywood had just walked off. They had to pretend everything was normal when it clearly was not. They had to navigate a show that was in crisis mode. The staff working behind the scenes had to scramble. They had to figure out how to fill the time that Harrison's interview was supposed to take. They had to rearrange segments. They had to adjust the show on the fly. All because one host decided to ambush a guest. The segment producers who had set up the interview felt terrible. They had reached out to Harrison's team. They had promised a normal promotional interview. They had given assurances that it would be friendly and straightforward, and then it all fell apart. Those producers now had to answer to their bosses. They had to explain how a simple movie interview turned into a disaster. They had to deal with the fallout. They had to figure out how to repair relationships with publicists and talent agents who were now questioning whether their clients should appear on the show. The network executives were not happy. They had built the show on certain principles. They had cultivated relationships with Hollywood. They had worked hard to make it a place where celebrities felt comfortable coming to promote their projects. And now, one incident threatened all of that. The damage to trust was significant. Other celebrities and their teams were watching. They saw how a respected actor was treated. They saw that even someone as established and professional as Harrison Ford was not safe from being ambushed. That made them think twice about agreeing to appear. Publicists started having conversations with their clients. They discussed whether the show was still a good platform. They weighed the benefits of the exposure against the risk of hostile treatment. Many decided it was not worth the gamble. The moment became a case study in what happens when professional boundaries are crossed. It showed that guests, no matter how famous, deserve basic courtesy. It demonstrated that hosts have power, and with that power comes responsibility. It proved that trust, once broken, is hard to repair. Years later, people still talk about the time Harrison Ford walked off The View. They remember the tension. They remember the uncomfortable silence. They remember the shocked faces of the other hosts. And they remember thinking that he did exactly the right thing. It became a reminder that even in an industry built on promotion and publicity, dignity matters. Even when you need to sell tickets and promote projects, you do not have to tolerate abuse. Even when cameras are rolling and millions are watching, you can stand up for yourself. Harrison Ford's exit from The View became more than just a viral moment. It became a line in the sand. It became a statement about respect and professionalism. It became proof that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. The confrontation also highlighted something important about the nature of celebrity interviews. Guests come on shows as a courtesy. They agree to give their time to help promote projects. They do not owe hosts anything beyond basic professionalism. And hosts, in turn, owe them a fair and respectful platform. What made this situation particularly striking was how unexpected it was. Harrison had no warning. He walked into what he believed was a standard promotional appearance. He prepared to talk about his film, share some behind-the-scenes stories, and engage with the hosts in a friendly manner. Instead, he was immediately put on the defensive. The way Whoopi framed her questions revealed a lot about her mindset that day. She did not approach the conversation as an interview. She approached it as an opportunity to make points. She had an agenda. She had things she wanted to say. And Harrison just happened to be the person sitting in the chair when she decided to say them. Her comments about privilege and responsibility came out of nowhere. There was no context. There was no build-up. There was no gentle transition into the topic. She just went straight for it, and that made it feel less like journalism and more like an ambush. The accusation that Harrison had been silent on important issues was particularly unfair. It assumed she knew everything about his private charitable work. It assumed she understood all the ways he used his platform. It assumed he owed her, and by extension the audience, a public accounting of every cause he supported. This expectation that celebrities must constantly prove their worth beyond their work has become increasingly common. The idea that being talented is not enough, that being successful is not enough, that you must also be an activist, a spokesperson, and a moral authority on every issue of the day. Harrison pushed back on that expectation, not because he does not care about important issues, but because he understood that agreeing to promote a movie does not mean agreeing to be interrogated about every aspect of his life and beliefs. Those are two separate things. The audience reaction throughout the segment was telling. They started out excited. They applauded when Harrison walked out. They were ready to enjoy the interview. But as Whoopi's tone became more aggressive, the audience grew quieter. The energy shifted. The enthusiasm disappeared. By the time Harrison walked off, the audience was in shock. Some gasped. Some looked at each other in disbelief. Some clearly felt bad for him. They could see he had been treated unfairly. They could see this was not a normal interview gone wrong. This was something else entirely. The silence after he left was deafening. No one knew what to say. No one knew how to react. The hosts looked lost. The audience looked uncomfortable. The crew kept filming because that was their job. But everyone knew they had just witnessed something that should not have happened. What could have been a pleasant conversation about movies and storytelling became a lesson in how not to treat guests. What should have been a mutually beneficial promotional opportunity became a public relations nightmare. What was meant to be entertainment became a controversy. The incident reminded everyone watching that celebrities are people too. They have feelings. They have limits. They deserve respect. Just because someone is famous does not mean they should have to endure hostile treatment. Just because someone agreed to an interview does not mean they agreed to be attacked. Harrison handled the situation with remarkable grace. Lesser people might have lost their temper. Others might have fought back more aggressively. Some might have said things they would later regret. But Harrison kept his cool. He stayed measured. He made his point without being cruel or insulting. His final line about the difference between a hard conversation and a hostile interrogation summed everything up perfectly. It cut through all the noise and got to the heart of the matter. It was not about avoiding tough questions. It was about basic decency. The moment served as a wake-up call for the industry. It showed that guests will only tolerate so much. It demonstrated that there are consequences when boundaries are crossed. It proved that respect is not optional, even in the name of so-called hard-hitting journalism. Other talk shows took note. They realized they needed to be careful about how they treated their guests. They understood that one bad incident could damage years of carefully built relationships. They recognized that celebrities have choices about where they go and what shows they support. The confrontation became required viewing for anyone studying media and journalism. It offered a clear example of what happens when ego overtakes professionalism. It showed how quickly an interview can derail when one person decides to grandstand rather than listen. In the end, the moment belonged to Harrison Ford. Not because he won some kind of argument, not because he got the last word, but because he demonstrated something valuable. He showed that you can stand up for yourself without losing your dignity. You can walk away from a bad situation without burning bridges. You can refuse to participate in something unfair without being unfair yourself. That is the legacy of that day. Not the specific words that were said, not the particular accusations that were made, but the principle that was defended. The idea that respect matters, that guests deserve. Courtesy. That power should be used responsibly. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply walk away.